I didn't expect much that morning. Just acknowledgement. Not balloons, not a party, just the small confirmation that I existed in the room for a reason other than comparison. My mother placed a wrapped box on the table. My name was on it, written in her quick, slanted handwriting. I remember feeling embarrassed by how hopeful that made me. We ate first. My brother talked about his upcoming exams. My father nodded, asked questions, leaned forward. I waited. Then my mother slid the box across the table, but not to me. "To your brother," she said. "He'll make better use of it." I laughed softly, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. My father didn't look at me when he said it. "You don't deserve anything right now. When you start taking life seriously, maybe." There was no anger in his voice. That would have been easier to argue with. It was calm, dismissive, final. I didn't defend myself. I didn't remind them I'd been working late shifts, that I'd applied to programs they told me were unrealistic, that I'd paid my own tuition deposit. Silence had become my most fluent language. My brother avoided my eyes as he unwrapped the gift. It was the laptop I had asked for, not demanded, asked. I watched him run his hand over it like it had always been his. Something settled inside me then. Not rage, not heartbreak, recognition. I finished my food, I washed my plate, I went upstairs. That night, I packed with the kind of care people use when they're handling glass. Not because I was fragile, but because I didn't want to break anything on my way out. I left the house key on my desk. I didn't write a note. I didn't want to argue my departure into legitimacy. I left at 2:14 a.m. The air outside felt indifferent. That helped. 2. The weeks that followed were not dramatic. I moved into a shared apartment near the city. It was small, loud, imperfect, but it was mine in the only way that mattered. I had chosen it. The opportunity they'd dismissed, the one they called naive, became real. I'd applied to an international training program months earlier. Competitive, structured, funded. When the acceptance email came, I stared at it for a long time before opening it fully. I didn't cry. I just breathed differently. There were documents to sign, medical forms, deadlines. Because I had listed my parents as emergency contacts years ago for legal reasons, the institution attempted to reach them to confirm updated guardianship records tied to my previous address. I didn't think about it much until the call started. T3, weeks after I left. It was my brother's birthday. I know because my aunt sent me a photo by accident. The cake looked identical to mine had, except there were candles shaped like his age. Later that evening, my phone buzzed. Not from them, from the program coordinator. "There's an issue," she said carefully. "We've attempted to contact your listed guardian 74 times regarding your relocation confirmation. They haven't responded. We need formal acknowledgement to finalize your placement." 74. I pictured my parents' phones vibrating on the kitchen counter while they sang. I imagined them ignoring unknown numbers, assuming it was telemarketing or something unimportant. The coordinator's tone shifted slightly. Official. Now, if they fail to respond within 24 hours, the documentation will proceed under independent adult status, but this will permanently update your legal records and emergency contact designation. It wasn't a threat, it was policy. For the first time in my life, a system larger than my household was waiting on them, not me. I said quietly, "Proceed as required." Later, that night, my mother called. I watched the screen light up, then my father, then my brother. I let it ring. Finally, a voicemail. My father's voice, tighter than I'd ever heard it. "Why is some international office calling us nonstop? What have you done?" Not "where are you?" Not "are you safe?" What have you done? I didn't respond immediately. The next morning, the coordinator confirmed the shift. "You are now fully independent in our records. All future communications will go directly through you. Congratulations." Congratulations. It sounded heavier than celebration.
I heard through relatives that my parents spent the night contacting lawyers and extended family trying to understand the paperwork. The deadline had passed. The transfer was complete. They were no longer listed as my legal guardians in any capacity connected to the program. They hadn't been consulted, they hadn't approved, they hadn't controlled. Not because I fought them, because I stepped out of reach. Weeks later, I stood in an orientation hall with other trainees. I listened to instructions about housing, schedules, expectations. My name was called, and I answered without hesitation. There was no applause in my life, no dramatic apology waiting in my inbox, just structure, just consequence. My parents texted eventually, short messages, confused ones, a few attempts at authority that no longer had weight. You should have told us, maybe, but I had been telling them years. They just preferred silence when it came from me. Now they had 74 reminders of what silence feels like from the other side. I don't hate them. I don't feel victorious. I feel aligned. On my last birthday in that house, they decided I didn't deserve anything. They were right about one thing. I didn't deserve what they were offering, and for the first time, I chose accordingly.